America's most expensive skyscraper nobody wants to live in. That's not a rumor. That's not a headline someone made up. That's 432 Park Avenue, a tower on Manhattan's Billionaires Row where people paid tens of millions of dollars for apartments and then spent the next several years trying to get out of them. So how does that happen? How do you build the most exclusive address in the country and end up with a building the internet compares to a giant Jenga set? Let's start with what this thing actually is. 432 Park Avenue is 96 stories tall, 1,396 feet high, and was the tallest residential building in the Western Hemisphere when it opened in 2015. Designed by Raphael Vignoli, who, and this is a real fact, said he was inspired by a waste paper basket. The design is a perfect grid of square windows, repeating all the way up the facade. Clean, minimal, impossible to ignore on the skyline. And that was the whole idea. You were not just buying an apartment, you were buying a position in the sky that anyone in Manhattan could look up and see. The building has 104 residential units. The projected sellout was $3.1 billion, more than any other residential building in New York City history at the time. Early buyers included Saudi retail magnates, hedge fund managers, international investors. Almost half the original purchasers were from outside the United States. Many bought through anonymous LLCs. A lot of them had no intention of living there full-time. Some had no intention of living there at all. This was not housing. This was capital storage with a view of Central Park, a financial instrument with a penthouse. And look, people got it. The concept worked exactly as designed. The building sold out. A penthouse went for $87 million in 2016. The address did what it was supposed to do. 432 Park Avenue meant something. It meant you were so far above everyone else, literally, that the street life of New York was just a pattern of tiny yellow cabs and tiny struggling people far below. That distance was the product. Now, 432 Park Avenue is not alone up there. The stretch of 57th Street just south of Central Park is lined with these things. Super tall glass needles that shot up over the last decade, each one thinner and taller than the last. They call it Billionaires Row. There's 157 Central Park Tower, 111 West 57th Street, 220 Central Park South. Together, they changed the Manhattan skyline in a way that took maybe 10 years and surprised almost everyone. Your grandfather's New York had the Empire State Building, the Chrysler Building, Rockefeller Center, towers built for people who worked in them. These new ones are built for people who might visit once a year, or never. Go figure. Then the building opened. And that's where it gets interesting. Residents started noticing things. The building swayed. Pencil towers are engineered to sway. That part is not a surprise. What was a surprise was the noise. People described their apartments as plagued by creaking, banging, and clicking sounds with no obvious source. The trash chute, when used, reportedly sounded like a bomb going off. Not once. Every time. The elevators were programmed to slow down during high winds, which in a super tall is a regular occurrence, and residents reported being trapped inside for hours at a stretch. In 2021, the condo board filed a lawsuit against the developers. The complaint listed over 1,500 construction and design defects. One attorney called it one of the worst cases of developer malfeasance in the history of New York City luxury real estate. The developers responded by calling the building a treasure and describing its problems as a sophisticated symphony of systems that simply needed fine-tuning. Right, a symphony with explosions. Because here is what else happened. A contractor arrived to fix one of the persistent water leaks. He started drilling through the concrete floor. Nobody had told him where the electrical wiring ran underneath. He cut through a cable. The explosion launched him several feet through the air. According to the lawsuit, that was allegedly the second such explosion in 3 years, in a building where people paid $20, $30, $40 million for an apartment. Something else. Meanwhile, and this is a detail that somehow keeps getting buried, residents were already required to spend $15,000 a year at the building's private Michelin-starred restaurant. Not a suggested minimum. Required. When the building opened in 2015, that fee was $1,200 a year. It quietly climbed to $15,000. And the complimentary breakfast they were promised when they bought? Gone. Wild. In 2025, the board filed a second lawsuit. This one accused the developers of outright fraud. The new complaint alleged that engineers had warned about problems with the concrete before construction even began, and that, rather than act on those warnings, the developers fired the consultants who raised them. There was also this detail: when engineers eventually recommended coating the cracked facade to prevent water infiltration, developer Harry Macklow reportedly rejected the idea because he did not want to ruin the building's white aesthetic. He suggested a clear sealant instead. Similar, he said, to the product used on his yacht. The facade of a billion-dollar skyscraper, yacht polish. As of late 2025, independent engineers estimate that properly repairing the facade could cost $160 million. A 3-year renovation plan has been discussed among residents. The developers deny the need for any such repairs and have called reports of structural failure baseless. The building currently holds a designation from the city that means it is not dangerous today, but needs ongoing work to stay that way. Not yet a problem. Keep watching it, of course. And what has all of this done to values? A unit on the 79th floor was listed in 2021 for $135 million. It sold in 2023 for $65 million, roughly what the seller had paid for it in 2016. 7 years of ownership. A custom interior by a Japanese architect. Net return, 0. Across the building, the pattern repeated. Multiple units sold at discounts of 20 to 25%. An analysis from 2025 found that most owners who sold after the problems became public took a loss. Not great. Here is what 432 Park Avenue actually is. Not a cautionary tale about engineering. A cautionary tale about what happens when a building is designed primarily as a status symbol and a financial asset, and the people who have to live inside it come second. The concrete was chosen for its white aesthetic, not its durability. Warning signs were ignored because the sellout value was too good to slow down for. And when things started going wrong, the instinct was to manage the optics, not the building. The same logic that made 432 Park Avenue irresistible to buyers is what made it what it is today. You can still buy an apartment there. Units are actively listed. The penthouse has been on the market since 2021, originally asking $169 million, now down to $105 million, still unsold. On a clear night, looking up from the street, most of the floors are dark. Nobody home. The lights are off because there is no one to turn them on. That is the building. The tallest residential tower in the Western Hemisphere for 5 years. $3 billion in sales. 2 lawsuits. $160 million in estimated repairs, and a facade held together for now with the rough equivalent of yacht polish.